I'm here to help us fathom the gist. What is life all about? Well, it's something that Gurdjieff put to people about fathoming the gist, if I can say the word, fathoming the gist. Fathom the gist of this, all and everything, or what's also known as Beelzebub's tales to his grandson, or as Gurdjieff also, because he gives it 3 titles, so you've got all and everything, Beelzebub's tales to his grandson, as well as a critical, the objectively impartial criticism of the life of man, the objectively impartial criticism of the life of man, which is what a lot of this book does, criticizes how humanity lives and why it's not doing what it should be doing. He's really trying to explain that in this book. And I know many people find it a very difficult book to read. We all do. He even says himself, you know, he's made it as difficult as he can. He says he's not only buried the bone, but he's also buried the dog. You know, when the dog's trying to dig the bone up, he's put the dog in there too, because he's trying to make it really difficult for us, because it's only for those that really want to develop that will understand it. But I'm going to give you a little secret to fathoming the gist. It's all about soul development. All these people that are reading the book and trying to fathom the gist, looking for esoteric, exoteric, mesoteric meanings to it all. Deep down, it's all about developing one's soul. And as he says in that 3rd title to it, an objectively impartial criticism of the life of man, he says that humanity lives in this lunatic asylum because we don't live properly, we don't live real lives. So he's made his book quite difficult to read, yet at the same time he's telling us the whole point of how to develop our soul, how to truly live. You know, it's a difficult book to read, I have no doubts about that. It takes one on all different types of paths, directions, with thoughts and feelings. And it takes you on all kinds of pathways. But he looks at the history of humanity, of why we keep going up and down, up and down. People come to teach us how to develop ourselves. And people listen for a while and go, yeah. And then they either kill them or mistranslate the writings or the learnings or the teachings, and then go back to sleep. So Gurdjieff's explaining how humanity ignores every opportunity to develop it oneself. Humanity as a whole, most people are robots, he says, following their programming, doing the same old over and over, but he's trying to help us to break out of that mold, break that programming, and be the real person you're supposed to be. He wants to help you. But he says at the beginning about how he's going to break down all your beliefs, all your programming, all your system, and then you need to rebuild yourself from what he's teaching in this book. And then once you've rebuilt yourself, hopefully crystallized yourself in the correct ways, he says, crystallized yourself in impartial thinking and using real conscience and real consciousness, being truly identified with yourself is in being harmonious with all your centers harmonized. Then you can work on developing your soul. And then when you've done that, you can become part of the universal reciprocal maintenance that's ongoing. If you don't become part of the divine workings of the universe, you're outside of it, and then you find that your life kind of is a bit up and down, jagged. Some things work, very few things work, most things are shit. You get caught up in stuff that you don't want to be caught up in. You're not in a harmonious stream, you're not flowing harmoniously. He's saying that by fathoming the gist of his book, he can help you develop yourself so that you can live a more harmonious life, which surely that's what we all want. But most people enjoy their suffering far too much, and he describes all that in this book as to why people hold on to their suffering. Why people like to go, woe is me, and such like. He's trying to tell us trying to find the quotes that I was going to use. Well, so this book explains how one can be, not how one doesn't want to be, how not to be. Yeah, he also explains how not to be as well. Yes, he shows all the ways of how humanity goes up and down, how one gets caught up in this lunatic asylum that Gurdjieff says this world is. But if one works on oneself, instead one becomes a real person and leads a real life with a capital R, real, capital R, rather than a little r, as in what we believe is our real life, the disillusionment. He's trying to teach us, rather than be a robot, we need to break that programming that we've been given and let the real self come out. He also explains in this book all the distractions and how it happens and what stops people wanting to develop themselves and their will, developing their will. And if one doesn't develop themselves and their will, you ultimately aren't really developing your soul. Your soul's kind of lopsided or, you know, haphazardly made, where we want to try and make our soul to be the real essence of ourselves. The whole process of this development is in this book, All and Everything. I'm just going to open the book randomly at a page. And he talks about, you know, working upon oneself, the strangeness of the psyche of your favorites in respect of the religious teachings which arise in this way among them manifests itself in this, that they already from the very beginning understand literally all that has been said and explained by these genuine sacred individuals actualized from above, and they never take into account in what environment and for which case this or that was said and explained. And further, already during the transmission from generation to generation of these religious teachings, the sense of which had already from the very beginning been distorted, they begin to adopt in regard to them the following two factors which had already become fixed in the general existence of these strange free brain beings. The first of these consists in this, that those beings who in the given period of the flow of time belong to the caste called the ruling class immediately hook on to these religious teachings, just that for them most maleficent question, which exists on this ill-starred planet under the name of religion for the state or the state for religion. And corresponding to this, they gradually begin with every kind of artfulness to juggle with the previously fixed facts for the justification of their own egoistic aims. And the second consists in this, that certain ordinary beings there, owing to the fault of their producers, acquired in their common presences during their arising as well as during their formation into responsible beings, the inherency of what is called psychopathy and parasitism, in consequence of which they do not have and cannot have in themselves any data at all for the manifestation of any being duty whatever it might be, and become, as it were, authorities for all the trifling details of the new religious teachings which have already arisen in the mentioned way, and begins, as it is said, to peck like crows at a jackal's carcass. That totality already pecked from the very beginning without this of what had been spoken and indicated by the genuine sacred individuals intentionally actualized from above. Sacred individuals, those good folk that came and taught us the right way. It's manipulated and changed by people that want to use it for egoistic aims. And that's one of the main things that's the problem with humanity, the ego. Ego developed wrongly. Ego developed that's all about themselves and for their own good and not for the good of humanity. And for his endlessness. I keep going to say the divine source because that's what I call him. Gurdjieff calls him his endlessness. You know, being part, or like I said at the beginning, of the harmonious development of the whole universe. It's not egoistic, though there has to be a bit of ego in us to want to do this, to develop, but we mustn't let the ego overtake. The ego helps pave the way to help us develop our will and our soul so that we can be the true human beings we want to be. And I've done lots of shows on Gurdjieff, you know, look in the back catalogue if you're interested. I've done recordings of all and everything, audio recordings. Other people have put my recordings up. There's other people that have done recordings of all and everything. So you can even just pop it in your ears and have a listen. Though definitely reading it helps. And as that quote I just did randomly, it does sound really difficult. But once you really put effort in, it makes sense. It starts telling you how to break free from the programming of being a robot and becoming a real live human being that lives for the divine, for the world, for the universe, and develops your soul, which is the most important thing of all. You need your soul. So thank you for listening. I might have gone on a bit of a ramble then, but I suddenly felt this urgency to do this for some reason. I was having a little meditation, asking what I should do, and this kind of spiel came through about doing how to fathom the gist of all and everything. All and everything is really important to learn. Be real people.